right, welcome everyone to this BDB Virtual Diamond Boutique presentation of a discussion about lab-grown diamonds and mine diamonds and turning the conversation from this or that to this and that. I'm very excited about having this conversation. I'd like to introduce our guests first. We have David Mazer from Mark's Jewelers outside Philly. And we had Krish Jhaveri from Amiti. It looks like he just dropped out for a moment, so hopefully he'll be back. We have Stanley Zale. Oh, I'm sorry. David is director of sales for Mark's Jewelers outside Philly. And we have Stanley Zale, who's VP of Diamond and Gemstone Procurement for Stuller. And we have Beth Pappalardo, who's the director of inventory control for Jones Brothers Jewelers in Peoria, Illinois. And hopefully we'll have Krish back any moment. Krish is the vice president of sales for the vice president for there you are. And this panel was chosen because we were looking for experts in selling both mined and lab grown. So this is the perspective that this group is going to bring to us today. This topic is really back in 1999. I flew to Boston where I was put into a van with no windows in the back and driven to Apollo Diamond, where Bob and Bryant Linares were growing diamond material. This was back when the Linares team and also Carter Clark at Jemison were all having a tremendous amount of stress. De Beers had started their, what did they call it? The Gem Defensive Program. And everybody was really, really scared about what was going to happen in lab-grown diamonds. And I knew back then, Apollo wasn't ready to grow gem material deep enough to actually fast it and turn it into a usable gemstone. It was industrial material at the time. But it was clear then that the diamond or the jewelry industry, and the diamond industry in particular, was going to struggle with this issue and how to incorporate lab-grown diamonds into our supply chain. I was very impressed several years ago when Stuller took on the product line because it seemed like it was brave. And then I was impressed again. VDB decided to offer lab grown as part of their marketplace. And in both cases, these companies have done it in a very thoughtful way, separating the inventory, managing the inventory as its own category. It's been exciting to see. And then retailers and wholesalers that are taking on lab grown material, not as just a lab operation, but as both. It has taken some courage in the context of the current jewelry industry to make these choices. So it's these courageous folks that are on the session today, sponsored by the courageous VDB, who brought it in as a product offering. So I was delighted to be asked to moderate this panel. I think this is such an important discussion for us to have. And I think that's where I want to start with you guys. At a time when other companies, and they still are arguing about this or resistant to this or fearful, you guys jumped in. So what made you decide to jump into lab grown diamonds? How did you go through that thought process in your company?
Well, I'll start. About 11 or 12 years ago, I was in Boston and went to see Dr. Linares at Apollo. So the windows were open. I drove myself and was there and started to learn a bit. But our evolution, it really was an evolution, began in 2012 when we understood that we had to begin screening for undisclosed lab-grown diamonds. And that's where our journey really started. And it began with screening. And as the technology improved for screening and therefore our ability to screen for undisclosed lab-grown increased, we had the comfort level that we could carry the product and successfully keep the lab-grown diamonds separate from the natural diamonds. And that's really been the underlying driving force behind everything that we're doing with lab-grown over the last several years, 5-6 years.
I know for us, Andrea, as with many things in the marketplace, your customers dictate what you carry in your store. Really not that different than any other designer line you may carry in your store when you make a determination what it is you want to do when you grow up. Our customers, the younger customers were coming in. Conversations began to be had where though people readily accepted Kimberly process and what Global Witness was doing, there were questions regarding was there anything beyond that level of responsibility, beyond that level of integrity. And it came to a conversation of what are my alternatives to a naturally mined diamond? Is it only cubic zirconia? Is it only any of the other stimulates out in the world? And then there's this thing called a synthetic diamond or a laboratory grown diamond, as we now refer to it. And as long as you put forth all the proper auspices of what it is and what it is not, it's another choice in your store, another theoretical golf club in the golf bag, as it were.
That's exactly why we ended up picking up and going forward with it is we look at it as we're not here to tell you or judge you on whether you want lab grown or earth mine. We're here to give you an option and to educate our customers on both of the options. And here you go. The best example is when I first started here, you know, there were several customers that were coming in asking for emerald and diamond rings. So we started carrying emerald and diamond rings because the customers were asking for it. So this is no different than lab-grown gemstones. It's just another option. And we are not here to judge the customer base. We're here to educate and sell to the customer base.
Great.
Now you're
right, and just building up on what Bethany just said. So it's essentially all about who's your target customer and what do they want. And as far as our company is concerned, we are mostly into certified diamonds, and this is a natural extension of what we already carry. So the entire supply chain is pretty much the same except for the sourcing. So it kind of made it very, very easy for us to kind of just add this option. And now that, you know, the pioneering companies have already done the hard work of bringing this product to the mainstream. So Gen Z, the millennials, they've all embraced it. The demand is there. It's going to improve. It's going to continue to improve. So, you know, your customer is going to buy it. The question is, are you going to be the one selling it? So, and we wanted to be in a place where, you know, we could be part of that equation as well and continue to be relevant. And it was just a natural
extension of what you were doing.
Extension of the product line.
Do you?
Right. Yeah, and exactly for us.
Yes. So
it's very simply to meet market demand. No judgments, Bethany, to your point. And if someone chooses to adorn themselves with a piece of jewelry with a diamond that's made synthetically, laboratory grown, then that's their choice, and that's fine. And you can choose to buy it, or you can choose not to buy it. We're here to meet market demand. That's all.
Correct.
And an important thing is, you know, adding this product to the mix is relatively inexpensive. It requires some training on the storytelling for the salesperson to know exactly how to present it to the customer. But as far as the product itself is concerned, you don't really, if you know diamonds, you don't really need to learn lab-grown diamonds. It's pretty much the same as you would, you know, learn and identify and discuss a mined diamond. Just the storytelling changes. I mean, just upon this community to kind of, you know, prepare the story and make sure that the consumers are already, you know, continuing to buy, you know, love this product. So as this category continues to evolve, like most points of resistance are steadily being resolved by the lab-grown community. And, you know, as time progresses, this will continue to make it more palatable for everybody across the board.
So I want to come back to storytelling in a moment, but let's go just for a second to that point of resistance. Were the points of resistance just from peers within the industry, or were there also points of resistance from the customer base? Like, what kinds of resistance did you experience in introducing this, if you experienced any?
I think with everything, Andrea, there's always different levels of resistance. There are certainly the stalwarts of the industry who say, oh, nay, nay to anything that is not naturally mined. There is the same consumer who comes in who can't fathom or imagine asking for someone's hand to spend the rest of their life with them with something that is not naturally mined. That said, it may be a mindset of a day gone by because the people coming into our store are asking questions that our fathers and grandfathers and great-grandparents weren't asked at the time. It's not just a responsibly sourced conversation anymore. There's people who are coming along in who might want to have a zero carbon footprint conversation or something environmentally greener as it were. And though there's different sides to that argument, once you get involved with knowing everything about the process of manufacturing a laboratory grown diamond, to Beth's point, it's a choice. And someone comes along in and they espouse to you what it is they're looking to do. They have a given level of expenditure, and it's our responsibilities to guide them wisely. And should the set of parameters lend themselves to a diamond if they're looking for something of size and they don't want to necessarily compromise on quality, and a laboratory grown diamond is the right answer, why would we not put forth that suggestion, provided we put forth all of the appropriate facts and allow them to make an intelligent decision over the counter?
We saw more resistance from peers in the industry, people that were either GGs or part of the AGS Society. We were kind of, well, why would you do that? It's not a diamond. And we approached it as we are just giving our customers a choice and educating them on what is available to them and letting them make the decision. We are not here to judge either way. So we saw more resistance from within the industry adversely to customers who were judging us, oh, you carry lab-grown diamonds. They wanted to know what it was because a lot of customers didn't know what it was. So we had to educate them and move forward. And honestly, our business was half and half.
Interesting.
One of the things we realized, I may share with you, Andrea, we spoke about it before we started today. I remember my father telling me stories from the 50s when Carol Chatham first came out with synthetic gemstones. And everyone in the industry was aghast that the entire industry was going to fall on its face and no one would ever buy a naturally mined gemstone. And all that occurred was an expansion of the marketplace. And to me, I see exactly the same thing taking place now with laboratory grown diamonds. It's allowing someone else to come into the marketplace that might not necessarily be able to afford what he or she wants in a naturally mined diamond. They now have another alternative that gives them all the optical, physical, and chemical properties of the natural at a lesser expense.
Well, in fact, when Chatham first came out,
David,
this is bankrupt industry. And then they kept saying it about lab-grown diamonds. Sorry, Stanley, what were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say, David, I had the same conversation with my father. Our family was in the retail jewelry business, and in the 1950s, when General Electric came out with lab-grown diamonds, it was scary. And so our family diversified their retail outlets and got into things other than jewelry. But ultimately, they came back to the point, which I embrace, that we're in the jewelry business. We're not in the diamond business. Diamonds are a means to an end. It's about jewelry, but they're not the end in itself. Correct. And so we can choose, how does someone choose to adorn themselves? If they want an emerald, a ruby, a Chatham emerald, a lab-grown diamond, whatever, as long as it's not something illegal that you're not smuggling ivory in, let's say, but as long as then who are we to say? It's the jewelry business.
For sure. Krish, what about you guys? Because you,
Andrea, one of the
I was just wondering if Amiti
Sorry,
got an amount of resistance because you're coming at it from a different supplier angle than Stuller.
so there are two segments here. So one segment is, again, the company who really loves doing business with us, and they've been with us for many years, and they see us as a supplier who can provide values and transparency and the service that they deserve. And the other segment is, and they don't care whether it is mined diamonds, and now that we've been able to supply lab-grown diamonds as an extension or above and beyond what we already given them. And then there's a very, very, very small segment which still continues to maybe believe that, is it okay that I'm buying lab-grown diamonds from the same company that I'm buying my mined diamonds? And again, this down. If a retailer is able to carry both products, then why can a trader not carry both products? So whatever processes and segmentation and division of inventory and labor that we need to do, investing in technologies that help us identify. We are RJC compliant, RJC certified member. So, we already have these processes in place. We know how to take care of our inventory. The personnel are
Everybody lost?
Andrea, I'm sorry we lost Krish. He makes a good point, but I would like, if I may, to jump on to Stanley's point. I agree with what he said completely. I do devoutly believe we do have an extraordinary responsibility as an industry, though, that when we're putting forth the positives and negatives of a naturally mined diamond and a laboratory grown diamond to our consumers, they need to be fully aware of both sides of the argument. Someone had just put forth a query on the chat regarding resale value, and we need to share with our clients what it is that we do as an individual.
properly. It's already taken care of.
Individuals, if they care to bring it back in for trade or otherwise. Stanley, I think we have that responsibility also as ambassadors of our industry to the public.
I'm curious, Dave.
I don't think I caught the entire part of what Dave was
We
saying.
kind of,
At the same time, we also need to be frank and realistic about the value. Yeah. Well, about the value of natural diamonds. Go ahead.
It looks like we're
Hello? You guys still there?
sorry,
We're
Marty.
frozen a little bit.
we're sort of frozen.
Freezing up on this.
Well, I was going to say the value of natural diamonds, which over the last 10 years have been on a gradual decline.
Yes, we hear you.
Well,
Right.
and that was a question I had, for our retail
Okay.
lists is, how much do you end up talking about the resale value of a mined diamond? Because I hear this argument brought forward a lot about lab resale value, but do you sell based on resale value of mined diamonds? And should you?
So
We've kind of taken it out of the equation. We've kind of looked at it in terms of
You don't sell
we'll
on the
talk about
resale value.
trade-in and resale value.
So
I'm sorry, say it again, David.
I apologize to our audience. We are getting a really poorly operating system today.
I agree with that. And to
We're still frozen. Yeah.
hello?
Our tech
Yeah, we're
has
freezing up.
been a trouble ticket to the company that runs the system, but I'm not sure what's going on here. There's nothing we can do from our end to fix it. It seems to be at the system level. I don't know if they're just overloaded today.
Andrea, if I may jump in, because a couple people were asking
I
about
think
it.
let's.
No, I don't.
Yeah.
That you harm resale or trade-in value, but I do think we have a responsibility to put it forth to our clients. Much like when we were all in fifth grade and our English teacher talked about how you write an essay and you talk about your opponent and then you go about talking about and espousing all the good of your product. I think you do the same when you're with a client. You do a needs assessment, you listen to what they need, and if the proper item for them is a laboratory grown diamond because it fulfills what their needs are, then you go forward with it, having addressed that the trade-in today could possibly be different tomorrow, theoretically.
That's the same way we've kind of handled it, David. We've kind of taken the conversation 10 years, 15 years next week. Doesn't matter what the resale value is. We're making a piece of jewelry, as Stanley has said, and what is your need right now? And what is your need with buying this? And we'll talk about trade-in later. And if you do want to trade in, of course we will work with you, but it shouldn't dictate how you purchase now.
Yeah, and that's
Well made.
what you were saying, right, Stanley?
I'm sorry?
And that's consistent with what you were saying, right?
Well, yes. And I'm happy to hear what David and Beth are saying. And if you had said otherwise, I would urge caution. Don't use the I word, investment word. You can't go there. And again, it's a piece of jewelry, and to your point, it's for today. And it's just that simple. By my view, what meets the customer's needs.
So let's go to talk.
Stanley,
Go ahead, David.
word with naturally mined diamonds, that's a very difficult conversation in and of itself, and that might be something for a different webinar one day. But you're exactly correct.
Well, and yeah, and to the point about natural diamonds, mined diamonds, there's a great Diamonds for Good story that I don't think gets told enough or even well enough, that the benefit that diamonds have brought to the countries where they've been mined, especially in the last 20 or so years. It's really fantastic.
Yes, it is.
And just another point I'd like to add to the resale value conversation. Also, we should remember that for the mined diamonds, there's already an established secondary market where people buy and trade those mined diamonds. And given the stage that the lab-grown industry is in right now, I think over the next few years, there will emerge a segment of the industry which will start dealing in this and trying to find value and reselling it again. Because ultimately, why is there value in a diamond again to buy it back? Only it is because you're able to you're able to resell it. So once that resale end of the business starts developing and more people get in and the cycle starts becoming smoother, then there's potentially an opportunity where that segment of the market could also emerge. So it's just a matter of time. So even that, I think, is not far off on the horizon.
It is definitely still.
I don't know what you guys think about that.
David?
Ma'am.
I thought you were responding to that, but I didn't hear it. I think our sound's getting a little better, but it's not better yet.
I was acknowledging Chris's point. It's a very interesting point. I don't know if necessarily that will ever come to be, much like it's never really come to be for a Chatham Emerald or a Chatham Ruby. That said, if you speak about the generational nature of the piece of jewelry, to Beth's point, it becomes a piece of jewelry that someone owns. It gets passed within their family, and whether it was naturally mined or laboratory grown, it still belonged to someone who was important in that family. It's not our role to make that decision for the client. We don't have a horse in that theoretical race. It is ours to listen, and to Stanley's point, make certain no one gets hurt. Nothing's illegal in the trading, so to speak, in the ivory conversation. But short of that, again, if everything points toward this young person across from us wanting a laboratory grown versus naturally mined, and it fulfills all that he or she wants, why not?
Do you guys manage
Totally agree, David.
differently? Like, how are you segregating inventories and supporting the separation of inventory in your various businesses?
We have it categorized separately, but in the same department. So I can do analytics on earth mined and lab grown, but I can also combine them into just loose diamonds. So I can drill it down on separately and then combine them to see what my trend is. And when you combine them into trends, you can start looking at price points. You can start looking at qualities and shapes and really drill down into it. But we do keep them separate. And when we display them, we keep them separate. If we, our displays, it's either black or white. So if it's black, it's earth mined. If it's white, it's lab grown. So that the consumer can see the difference. We can see the difference. But they're all in the same case.
Okay.
They're all displayed together.
For us, the lab-grown diamonds are kept physically separate. We certainly have each in their own inventory category. We have a lot of data, a lot of analytics, so we can understand what's happening in trend, the sales of one relative to the other. But we check everything, every diamond when it comes in, whether it's natural or lab-grown, whether it has a GIA report or not. We check everything because you must properly represent the product that you're selling. So as the lab growns come in, we make sure that they're lab grown. So we know exactly what we are representing it to be. So there's a lot of work, a lot of energy goes into that, but it's the underlying work that supports the business.
Without question.
Andrea, could you just, I think I lost what you were asking. I heard their responses. I just want to make sure I heard your question correctly.
Just how you...
Could you repeat that again, please?
Certainly. Just questioning how you manage the separation of the inventory, what you do internally to keep the lab grown and the mined separate.
Okay, yeah. So again, as far as our company is concerned, I would kind of build upon what Stanley just mentioned. So we have similar processes. Once the goods come in, they're segregated. Every single diamond that, especially if it's certified, every single diamond that goes in and out of the company, at both times, the diamonds are inspected. The girdles, inscriptions are checked just to make sure that, whatever's going in and out is as accurate. We have the identification machines that tell us whether they're lab grown. So, again, as a RJC certified company, we are required to follow a lot of these processes by default. So we have them in place, and, we make sure that everything is kind of managed so that there's no confusion.
So I hear all of you saying it's just good business process to manage your inventory carefully and make sure consumers know exactly what they're getting, and you've got those procedures in place. But it doesn't sound like it worries any of you, because this used to be a big part of the discussion. Oh, they're going to get mixed up. Oh, consumers are going to get confused.
Well, I worry about it, but we're doing the work and we're maintaining the protocols. And we have a lot of many screening instruments throughout the building. There are many people here in the building who, over the course of their day, at some point will be doing some level of screening work, whether it's validating in a piece of jewelry after the diamonds have been set, let's say, or upon receipt. But it's organized and it's a process, but we're motivated to do it right. So in the sense, I worry about it because I want to make sure it gets done right. Yeah.
Andrea, the worries that you make reference to are really no different than us acting in fiduciary capacities for everything in our stores. We have the same responsibilities for heritage of our gold. We have the same responsibilities for total weights as they come from our vendor partners. We have the same responsibilities to put forth what something is correctly, just like we have the responsibilities of putting forth whether something's laboratory grown or naturally mined. It's really no different.
Absolutely, David. I couldn't agree more. It's looking at it lab grown earth mine. It's no different than a lab grown sapphire to genuine earth mine sapphire, or a ring to a pair of earrings. It's no different.
Yep. That's a really important point. Our fiduciary duty. Uh,
Sure.
let's talk about the stories. You've all referred in one way or the other to the different stories that you tell around the lab grown versus the mined. Can you talk about that and how you present them, and how those stories might be different from each other?
Sure. In our particular case, Andrea, when someone enters a store, there's already a threshold situation that Stanley and Krish may not have on the wholesale side of it, but Beth and I have to deal with on a regular basis. So once someone takes the breath of air from your given store and they're relaxed a little bit, and you're chatting about how they met and what the purpose of the gift is, et cetera, and you're getting the conversation to, I want to buy a diamond for whatever reason it might be. I like you, job well done, congratulations on the promotion. They're looking for what their choices are, and you're slowly narrowing from a very wide funnel to a very narrow funnel where you can get to the particular item that he or she's going to present. And we put it forth, did you realize for the amount of dollars you're looking to expend that you have another alternative in today's world, that being a laboratory grown diamond? Well, what does that do for me? What is that? The question will be in their own fashion. And you explain what it is and what it isn't. And there are some that very quickly will say, no, I don't think that's for me. She or he would prefer naturally mined diamond, and that's fine. And then there's someone that says, oh, I can get something of a larger nature. I'm not going to compromise quality. That's interesting to me. Can you please tell me a little bit more about it? And notoriously, at some point in this conversation will be the question that they ask in their own inimitable way. When I'm with my friends and I put my wrist out, or I put my ears out, or I put my hand out, will Susie understand that it's not? And you stop them at that point in the conversation and say, hold it a minute. Please understand, this isn't a simulant of diamond. This is diamond. It just happens to be grown in a laboratory. And none of your friends are going to know that you're wearing one. So if this fulfills what you want from this gift, and that seems to be an underlining common denominator in many of the conversations we have in our store.
We are very tailoring to who we're dealing with. Again, we're in Central Illinois, so we do have a lot of farmers. We are the home of Caterpillar, so we have a lot of engineers. So depending on what customer we're working with and what their expertise is, we tailor the conversation to that. Yeah. We have a major university in the area. Is it a student that we're talking to? Students may be a little more inept to get a little bit bigger bang for their buck, so to speak, whereas an engineer, they're all about how did it come to be. So they may lean a little bit more to earth mine, or they may lean a little bit more to the quality and the size. So it just depends on who we're talking to. And we really do try to tailor it. We don't try to cookie cutter. Every customer we view as a family member, as a guest in our house, and we try to tailor the conversation to those specific people.
Stanley and Krish, when you first started talking to retailers about it, how did those dialogues go?
It's been slow. Ramping up. The business has, the size of the market, it's been growing exponentially over the last few years. At first, they just needed to understand what the product was and to understand, yes, this is a diamond. It's not a simulant. It's not CZ. It's not moissanite. It's a diamond. And I think that as jewelers understood the value that it could represent for their customers, that let's say for the same amount of money, they can get a bigger diamond. And that might matter to some people, or a better color or a better clarity. Then as they learned about it, they began to embrace it. From our view, we don't talk about whatever eco benefits there might be because we don't know enough about it. And we don't feel comfortable that we could substantiate all of that. So we don't even go there on it. And it's really about, here's the advantages for your customer. And again, you decide. Let them decide.
Right. And the nature of our conversation with the retailers is a lot different than what the retailers face with their customers. Because like David said, I mean, we're dealing with somewhat of an educated audience. They already know from, all the conversations that are already going on. So they've already been exposed to this product and they understand quite a bit of the dynamics that kind of go with it. So our conversations are usually more on the business side of things, availability, pricing, and some of that nature, and how it is that we can help them promote that product through their store for their customers, and what all can actually be done together. So yeah, that's basically kind of a little bit of a difference between how the retailers may have to kind of deal with, and how the wholesale level we have to kind of work on.
Stanley, to your point a moment ago, where I respect and can understand you're not bringing up the process of the manufacturing. Interestingly enough, we have the educated client, the engineer type, Beth, to your point, who's coming in and instigating the conversation with us. So it's very interesting. The difference is from your and Krish's wholesale side to our side of the 18 inches of glass.
No doubt.
Absolutely.
No doubt.
Are any of you engaging in a discussion around the sustainability question and whether or not, what's lab grown's carbon footprint, the electricity used versus, there's a lot of claims out there. They're hard to feel. Do any of you have any good data on that?
Yeah, I haven't seen enough data one way or another that I'm satisfied with. And as I understand things, that the Federal Trade Commission says if you're going to make an eco claim, you have to be able to substantiate it. You have to be able to back it up. The Jewelers Vigilance Committee is a fantastic resource for more information. Avail yourself of what they have to offer, and they are a great help to us also. So again, you just be careful what you say. You have to be able to back it up.
If I'm not mistaken, Andrea, recently it was found that only one company did have the right and the appropriateness to refer to themselves as being eco-friendly. It was found the other companies were not able to claim the green or the eco-friendly claim they were in their advertising, and were forced by JBC and other organizations like them to withdraw those claims. I haven't looked into the one company. This isn't a program for us to put forth or promulgate a given company. But yeah, it does come up at times over the counter. People want to have a conversation about the eco-friendly nature of it. What's interesting, to Stanley's point moments ago regarding the good that naturally mined diamonds do in the industry and the identification of diamonds, you can have that very same conversation about naturally mined diamonds and the good that's being done. I mean, look at the industries. Look at what Forevermark did at Snap Lake as an example, where they counted the fish in the lake so that when they go back to finishing their mining there, they will make certain the exact same amount of fish are there. So these conversations can be had. We just have a responsibility to be knowledgeable about it so you can have an intelligent conversation over the counter.
So when consumers ask,
We really haven't, sorry.
no, go ahead, Beth.
um, we do get into that conversation, but primarily where we take it is it's either made in the lab or it's mined in the earth. And we don't have a lot of consumers that will take it to the next level of exactly how eco-friendly it is and how much, what is the bigger picture of it. They really just want to know, what happens in the lab versus what happens in the earth. And they kind of judge it from there.
Right. Yeah, like Bethany's saying, I think we don't really need to get too deep into this, and especially at the wholesale level, we're lucky that we're not the retailers themselves have done a lot of their own research, and they're already reading up on a lot of material from different sources. So from a trading point of view, for somebody who's wholesaling, that conversation is not a very important one, or doesn't come up as frequently as it would at the retail level, because the consumer is the one who's trying to actually make a decision whether they should buy a mined diamond versus they should buy a lab-grown diamond, because they're going to make a purchase either if it's an engagement ring once in a lifetime, hopefully, or if it's another fashion piece, then, excuse me, whether they want to, go for that. So the wholesale level, we kind of get spared from that conversation more often than not. So we're lucky for that.
In terms of, this is a question that keeps popping up in a couple of different flavors, but in terms of inventory position on lab grown, do any of you have corporate concerns or policies in place about monitoring, what your value is of lab grown inventory relative to when production ramps up and pricing goes down? Which is a guess, but
We, we're monitoring our inventory values of all products. And when we talk about where we might lose sleep, I also lose sleep about the value of natural diamonds. What's been going on lately is nothing like what we experienced in 2008, but we have to understand that the world has changed, and diamonds are not something that only go up in value anymore. And so I think we just all need to be prudent, that we have the right amount of inventory at the right time, the right product for the right customer, and just run a smart business.
Absolutely agree, Stanley.
Right.
It couldn't be.
Yes, absolutely.
It couldn't be more true.
Mm-hmm. Though we are jewelers, some of us first or second or whatever generation jewelers that we are also running businesses. And as Stanley said, we do have to be prudent. If the consumers are coming into our stores and asking for a given product and it makes sense to have it, you're monitoring those levels. If sales wean, you make certain decisions. If sales grow, and if they grow exponentially, you make different decisions. It's another item that we're offering in our store, no different than the choice of watch brands or the choice of gold brands, or to Beth's point a few moments ago, to the choice of colored stones brands. So
it's simple.
We've seen when we first picked it up, we had a selection, I think a pretty good selection. And as our sales have come up, our inventory has come up to match it, and our earth mine has gone down. You do that in your entire business plan. If you start seeing a rise in gemstone rings, you start carrying more gemstone rings. It's a business model.
Bethany, I'm curious.
All demand and supply.
You said you have engineers and farmers in your market space, and you also have students. Have you noticed that any one of those groups is much more responsive to lab grown than the others, or does it cut across them?
It kind of crosses them. I think it's a personality. It's a personality. It's a what's most important to you. For engineers, you might have, it needs to be perfect. It needs to be a D, internally flawless, 1 carat, 6.5 millimeter very cut and dry, but their budget does not dictate that. So it just depends on the personalities and what's most important to them. You know, you might have a student that just wants their girlfriend to have the biggest rock imaginable on her finger. You might have somebody that's trading, getting a second diamond for the same woman, and they just want it to be bigger than what they had, but they want to stick with what they originally purchased. So if they originally purchased Earth Mine, they want to stay with Earth Mine. It depends on personalities and what's the most important to that consumer.
Do you guys see the same thing, Dave?
Andrew, there's two very interesting thoughts that came across that we haven't touched on yet. And one of them is there are people coming into the store, Andrea, that just dig the whole process of chemical vapor deposition, or HPHT. They're engineer-esque types and are so intrigued by the science that they want to own something that replicates that science. And it's very interesting.
Nanotechnology, it's incredible.
Yes.
Absolutely. Before the session, we were talking about what's going on with our communities. Are we open yet? Are we not? And David, you said something interesting. You said we're not calling it the new normal. We're calling it the new next.
No.
The new next is David's
That's right.
phrase. So everybody, we can all start using the new next. We just have to credit David Mazer with it. I'm going to start.
No, and credit me. I got one of the webinars while we were all in our stores closed. Much like when the recession hit, there were people in this world that said, I'm choosing not to participate in the recession. We're choosing in our little part of the world that we're not going to call this the new normal. There's nothing normal about this. There are things that have changed in our world, and we have to be cognizant of that. You know, it's not such a terrible thing to wash your hands a little bit more often. You know, are we ever going to be in a 100,000 person stadium again? I don't know. But I know this is the now, this is the next, but there's nothing normal about it. So consequently, why we turned it down.
I like it. I'm curious. Do
I love it.
more of you think that the new next is going to have any influence on the mix of jewelry that people buy, and will that affect lab-grown purchases?
Like everything in our world, it's cyclical. Things that I remember, there was a seminar, matter of fact, it was at the AGS virtual conclave. And there was a whole discussion by a group of influencers who talked about how all the chains, literal chains, physical 14 or 18 karat chains from the 80s and 90s are now coming back again. All those beveled herringbones that we all lost our hair about or got gray about because they twisted and bent are now all of a sudden back in vogue. So I don't know what the answer is, but I think things are cyclical. It's truer than it is false.
Agreed.
Agreed.
I think right now with the new next, which I absolutely love that, David, and I'm taking that to my owner like as soon as I get off the call. I think with the new next, consumers want options. They want options laid out for them, and they want to decide, because the American public has not been able to decide a lot of things, and we're in a weird time. So having choices, having everything laid out for them, what would you like to see, and letting them decide is really putting that power into the consumer's hand is what will grow, I believe, will grow the business.
Well, it's kind of about respect for consumers, right? To take in information and make choices.
Of course.
Absolutely.
And you know, Gen Z, the millennials, I mean, they've all grown up with technology at their fingertips, and they're very adept at researching topics or anything of interest. And if this is something that, you know, comes across their, you know, their vision, and they get presented an offer of this nature, they're going to do their research, and they're going to figure out whether it makes sense for them. So economically and also philosophically. And we're seeing this trend where they're actually adapting and taking on, I mean, embracing this product category very, very well. And actually, it's more encouraging for other retailers to kind of do the same and actually look into exactly, are they missing out on not carrying this product in their retail stores.
Right, right. Will the price points resonate now? We'll see.
Yes.
Look, things are always changing.
The only constant is
Exactly.
Change.
So I don't want to say how long I've been in the business, but there's been nothing but change. And so just go with it, embrace it, figure it out, and keep moving forward.
without question.
That's really good guidance for us right now because we really need to be reinventing ourselves. Embracing change is about the only way to survive. There's a
Right.
question from the audience about your after sales experience. And if customers are going and recommending this to others, are you hearing that one retailer is being influenced by another retailer? What's your after sales experience like? Consumer or retail?
I'm
Our
not.
after sales is really what I have seen as consumers are referring people as consumers are coming back to shop with us. We offer the biggest selection and they have the right to decide. And I think that from what we have seen, customers send their friends in. They send their, for our clients that have been here for years, they send in their kids. They send in their grandkids. It continues to go down the line, and it's we're less judgy on what you pick. This is your selection, and what is your taste?
Andrea, I think for us, it's very interesting with all the various intellectuals in the world who have written articles and books about tribes. People really do operate in tribes. And someone who comes into the store and is interested and intrigued by a laboratory-grown diamond has friends who have similar interests. And therefore, those members of the tribe, as it were, will come along in and have similar conversations, or they see the pleasure that their friends, be it naturally mined diamond or laboratory grown diamond, has brought them, and they want something similar for themselves.
Are you seeing an influence in the mid part of the supply chain, Stanley and Krish?
Go ahead.
That's no. It's okay. You first.
I'm not sure if I'm seeing it quite that way. The market is growing. More retailers, consumers are becoming aware of the product. And then at the same time, there's been some stress on the diamond manufacturing end of the industry regarding profitability. And so some diamond companies are dabbling in the traditional, let's call them traditional mined diamond companies are starting to manufacture lab grown because they see, well, maybe this is a business that will help me out, at least through a difficult time of profitability. And so we're seeing some of that happening, driving the breadth of supply, if that makes sense.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And the way we've seen it is we noticed that some of the retailers are also doing their research in their geographical markets as to who their competitors are and what it is that they're doing. So if they see that there's somebody who's like, a few miles down the road and they're doing well with the lab-grown category, so then it becomes an impetus for them to kind of reach out to their suppliers or do their research on figuring out whether that category is something that they want to add. So yes, the way that David talked about the tribe, the mentality at the consumer level, where there's a lot of peer influencing. So, one person buys, the other people start buying. So, there's also this trend that's happening at the wholesale level, at the retailers level, where once they see that, okay, there's a guy next door, he's selling lab grown, and I see people walking into the store all day long, they're getting some information, they see the hoardings, they see the advertising, they see the Instagram, and all these different, media outlets that's offering that information to them. So it's like, me too, I don't want to be left out. So that's kind of also accelerating the adoption of lab-grown diamonds, for many retailers. So at the wholesale level, I would kind of put it that way.
So we're getting challenged by Lewis and our audience on the transparency stories. He's saying, well, if you're being totally transparent about lab grown and mined, are you being totally transparent when you sell a recycled diamond and letting somebody know that was on some other woman's finger? Is this an issue?
Well, it's a requirement. You need to be. That's true. That's correct.
We categorize it differently.
What do you mean by that, Bethany?
There's a section on the tag that I can put, pre-owned,
Okay.
and
So
go that route.
it's not an issue because you already disclosed.
That's correct. We have an estate department in our store as well.
And it's just another choice, right?
Exactly.
Yes.
Like pre-owned cars, certified pre-owned. So,
Mhm.
however you put it.
Another question, Nikolai's asking, how do you present HPHT to the client and present the difference between lab grown and natural?
If I may jump in, to Nikolai's point, I don't think it's something you have to necessarily disclose. It's either a laboratory grown diamond or it's a naturally mined diamond. I think for Beth and I as retailers and for Stanley and Krish, we make the decisions of what our fancy is in terms of what we like in terms of diamond. There are positives and negatives to both processes. Someone may like a whiter diamond. Someone doesn't like the gray overtone that some laboratory processes put forth. That's a decision when we pick and choose items to have in our store. As to the separation of laboratory grown to naturally mined, that's an easy one. Something by definition that is laboratory grown or synthetic has the same chemical, physical, and optical properties as the natural, but it's made in a laboratory. If the conversation is taken, well, could you explain to me how it's done? Then you have that conversation. We have a responsibility in the jewelry industry to be cognizant and knowledgeable to intellectually explain it, but not speak over our clients' heads. That's how I tackle Nikolai's question.
I think it could overcomplicate it for the consumer. I don't know where point Nikolai might be coming from, but I'm guessing he might be an advocate of HPHD. I personally think that there's some value to say this one's HPHD, this one's CBD, and if I were to be at a moment where I'm deciding between one or the other, I think I would choose an HPHD. But that's just me. And again, I think it could overcomplicate it for the consumer.
I will just, and I don't mean to step on you, Beth, I apologize. I just want to Stanley's point. Stan, I have great respect for you, knowing you all the years I have and what you said, but I think it could be similar to us having a client who comes in who enjoys a warmer, naturally mined diamond, and it may not be your and my predilection to liking a warmer diamond. So I don't feel that I should then tread on them and say, no, you shouldn't have a warmer diamond. They may like that warmer diamond. So that's how I view Nikolai's question with HPHD versus CBD.
Agreed.
We're getting challenged on our
And this is a forever evolving category. So, I mean, HPHD as it stands today or CBD as it stands today, if I remember correctly, CVD diamonds 5 years ago, you could not get, if you got anything above a J, it would be like, oh my God, we got something better than a J. And this was, I'm talking about my experience from 8 years ago. During that time, most of our stuff was all JKL colors. And today you get to see better colors. And this is just a matter of evolution of the technology as the improvements keep coming along. The distinction between HPHD and CBD as they exist today, that might actually kind of go down a little bit down the road. So again, it's just a matter of time, and at what point in the spectrum are you asking this question? So it keeps on changing, in my opinion, as time goes on.
We did get challenged on this. Someone said, if you buy a recycled diamond and then put it in a new mounting, do you still disclose that it was recycled?
I believe you have to.
You have to.
If I would think you would have to. I agree. Disclosing and being upfront and honest with consumers is your best communication. I mean, if you're being honest to them, they're going to trust you. And really, it's all about building a bond and building a relationship.
Andrea, it's very similar to the industry. Was a bit taken aback when AGTA came up with disclosures when we sell natural gemstones over our counter. So we had to find a way to rhetorically be able to discuss, for example, a tanzanite and how it comes out of the ground. And look what occurs when a bit of heating takes place in this magnificence, this panoply of color that you now see. It's really no different with recycled diamonds or, for that matter, estate jewelry, especially if the estate piece has a provenance to it.
I'm looking to see if we're at the top of the hour. There's a lot of conversation going on in the chat box. I'm looking for some questions here. I know that you speakers are also looking sort of at the chat box. Do you see any questions here we should be tackling? Oh, somebody is asking if it's true that the HPHT diamonds lose their color over time.
I'm not aware of that.
Not that I'm aware of.
I had never heard that either. Oh, and Stan, there was also a question about what percentage of retailers are carrying lab grown. Krish or Stanley, do you guys have any insight on that?
It's all about your own penetration as to how many retailers you're able to reach out to and how many of them are comfortable buying that category of products from you. So I don't think as a company we have the data to really explain that or answer that, because I know for a fact that there are a lot of customers already carrying that, but we have not broken into that segment of the business, even though we may have other areas of business relationship with them. So just to quantify that number in a percentage, I don't think I would be in a position to give you a proper answer. But I know for sure that it is definitely increasing on every single season.
I was going to say it's more, but I'm not sure what the real number is.
I haven't seen any data on it either. Kevin Montigem's asking, how do you explain the price differences between natural and lab grown if they're the same? And is there any concern of holding the value in either? I think we've answered the value question, but why do you guys think the price difference?
For me, when you're talking about a diamond and the extraordinary history to a diamond from how many miles beneath your feet it grew, especially in light of one of the seminars over the last month or two by the GIA regarding deep diamonds, as it were, and that's a conversation for a different day, how many billions of years the diamond took to form and for us to get it through tectonic plate shifts, et cetera. You're building value throughout your conversation with your client. If you're asking me to now compare that to something that I made in a laboratory, then theoretically, if I didn't turn the switch off, they would continue to form over a period of time. The differences become very obvious and visible and why there's a monetary difference. But you could also have a very simple economics 101 conversation with supply and demand and answer that question much more succinctly.
But you're giving such a fabulous example, David, of something I think we all talk about, which is at the end of the day, your margin depends on your ability to romance the product. We are not selling bits and pieces. We are selling finished things that have inherent value because of the whole package. So you're still romancing the stone at the end of the day. It's not the certificate that does it for you. It's the story.
Correct.
Right.
Absolutely.
That's what business.
I mean, you can go back, 60, 70, 80 years, before ago. I mean, what was the situation with natural diamonds? And it's just a natural progression of, marketing, supply and demand dynamics.
Mm-hmm. So. To Krish's point, Andrea, this conversation was had many decades ago when there was nary a commercial or promotional diamond in the industry. They were all beautiful, and everything of a more promotional nature went to industry. And then all of a sudden, more people wanted diamonds. They wanted bigger diamonds. And now a diamond that a jeweler would never think about putting in his or her store was now a part of their inventory. And that's what's taken place with laboratory grown.
Yeah.
The market will determine its value.
Yeah. Yeah. There was a time when any retail jeweler asked about a chocolate diamond would have just laughed. And that changed. All right, guys, we need to wrap this up. We're 6 minutes past the hour. I think that we've answered a lot of the audience's questions. I want to thank David Caesar of Mark's Jewelers and Beth Pappalardo of Jones Brothers Jewelers and Krish Jhaveri of Amiti and Stanley Zale of Stuller for being such a fabulous panel. Sound problems aside, which were not any of our fault. You guys are an amazing family. I would hang out and talk with you any day. I also really want to thank
Absolutely.
Yeah, you guys have been great. I want to thank Virtual Diamond Boutique for asking us to put this together and have this conversation. They did this as a service to the industry. They have some experience in launching a lab-grown platform. It's huge. I think there's like 35,000 diamonds or something in it. And taking some heat and making a stance in the industry. And I think that's very respectable when companies are helping the industry pursue meaningful, thoughtful change. Thank you very much, Virtual Diamond Boutique. And thank you to our audience. You guys were great. There's been so much conversation. We'll pull the chat. We will take a look at some of the questions that didn't get answered. A lot of them were about statistics. And we'll see if we can find some answers for you and circulate those. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, everyone.
Take care. Andrea.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.